Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Michelle Pollack. She is a high performance coach and the creator of Art of Compassionate Command. She works with high achieving women to determine what success looks like to them now so life can feel as good as it looks. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here today with you.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll be talking about how your success can sometimes feel empty and how you can fix it. So, Michelle, I want to understand you work with many of these high achieving women. So success can sometimes many people feel that you have achieved a lot, but you don't feel success does not actually register in your body or mind. You don't feel it that way. I want to understand first is it only with women or is it with men? Does it work more? We happen more with women or is it happening more with men? How does it
That's
look
such
like?
a great question. My work tends to be most with women, but I think this is something that can happen with anybody. There's an emptiness that people feel. They keep achieving and achieving and achieving, but it doesn't feel internally the way people thought it would feel when they hit that next milestone and that next milestone, or when they've achieved the thing that they set out to achieve for so many years. There's just a feeling of like, this is it, right? And I don't think it's particular to women. I think it's very common among all human beings.
Right, right. So, what is it that wrong with success that it does not feel like to be successful enough? You don't feel it that way. Is it the wrong sort of success that we have achieved, or is it the wrong sort of goal that we have defined as success? Success. Help us understand this part.
So, what I often find, or what I have found over my many years of exploring this with clients and working with people and doing research, is that there is a big tendency among high achievers, ambitious, driven people to set a goal and stay on the path towards that goal no matter what. And sometimes that goal is defined at a very, very young age, right? At a time when we aren't actually necessarily looking at what we want so much, but even more external influences are telling us, are informing our goals, are informing our ideas of success. So we may go to college, to university, and decide what we want to be at an age of 18 or 19, and still at 35 and 40, that's the thing that we are going after. And it's so common for people to just have their eye on the prize and go after that thing without stopping along the way to acknowledge who they're becoming as they get older, as they experience more and more in their lives. And as they evolve, their definition of success doesn't necessarily evolve with them, right? So I think that tends to be where people get stuck. They've stopped exploring. They've stopped asking, is this still what I really want? Is this aligned with the person that I am, with my values? And that's where people tend to get really stuck.
Right, Michelle. So, should we consider understand it as that it's almost like a manufacturing defect with success, that we have manufactured it the wrong way?
Oh, I love that way of thinking about it. That I think there is a general idea of what success looks like, right? It's making a certain money, it's a certain amount of money, it's achieving a certain status, right? It's all very external. But if you don't feel fulfilled internally, how successful are you really, right? So that's why so many people who do achieve high states, high accolades and high titles within their organizations and are making all sorts of money, their lives still feel very empty because they're not actually aligned with their values and what actually brings fulfillment to their lives. So that's not something that we really talk about in our society, right? That's not something that's highlighted, is the idea of fulfillment. But fulfillment is what really allows you to feel internally like you are on the right path, like life feels good, not just looks good.
Right, right. There are so many words here, and they're also related with feelings. Success is, I think, people want to define it in a tangible way, but most looks like most of these words, fulfillment, emptiness, happiness. Most of the time we consider these milestones or goals or success. Whatever it is, we put it like that. So, how does this fulfillment look like? What is this emptiness? What does it look like? Help us understand, so that if we look at it, putting them both side by side, what is the feeling? Because when these high achieving women, when they come to you for advice, what
Yes.
is it that they generally come with? Do they just say, I don't feel successful enough, or do I don't feel fulfilled enough? Maybe, how does it look like?
Usually they feel stuck in some way. It's a feeling of, I've been in this position for so long and it's not bringing me happiness. I feel burnt out. I know that this isn't the way I want to live for the rest of my life. I've been working and working and working, and I think that I'm going to feel good when I hit my next promotion or I hit my next milestone, and I still don't feel happy. It feels like there's something missing, right? Often that feeling of something's missing, or is this all there is, right? So that's often what women are experiencing when they first come to me. The first place I look with people is to their values. So many people think they know their values, and we do to an extent, but when you do a deep dive into your values of what is truly most important to you, and you assess, how much am I really honoring this value in my life, in my relationships, in my work environment, for myself? Usually what I'll find with the women I work with, I identify their top 5 values, right? 2 or 3 of those 5 values are not being honored in their lives. And that's where that lack of fulfillment really lies. So we can equate their dissatisfaction with a certain place in their life, or how they feel, with that value that is so important to them not being met.
Right, right, Michelle. So this sort of fulfillment cannot be achieved from an Amazon fulfillment store. So how do you then bring it to them, which they have left it so far behind? How do you do that? And how do you? It's like, as I talked about manufacturing defect. How do you go back in time and tackle with that defect? Because
Well,
sometimes it can be too late in life. So how do? It's a very difficult
no,
job.
Ajay, it's never too late. It's never
Okay.
too late. I don't believe it's ever too late. Never. I really believe that. I never believe it's too late. There's a woman that I used to take yoga with. Her name was Phyllis. She started practicing yoga when she was 80 years old. She learned to tango when she was 57. She started a new business at 65. It's never too late. So I just want to say that first and foremost. It's never too late. Listen, there's a Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The second best time is now. And that's it. It's never too late to actually sit down and ask yourself the questions and gain clarity about how you can move forward. So how to do that, we look at where you are and we look at where you want to go. And then we look at what's been in the way of you getting from where you are to where you want to go. And we create a plan to help you get there. Now, that sounds very simple. It's not quite so simple, but you have to start with where you are. You have to look at where you are now before you can just look at how to get to the next place, right? You can't get to where you want to be without assessing where you are now and what's working and what's not working. And there's always stuff that is working. There's almost always areas of your life where things do feel fulfilled, where you do feel filled, where your tank feels filled. And if we can follow that path more for people to help them get to more of that in the area of their lives where they feel empty, that's what we look at. But it's really assessing where you are, where you want to go, what's in the way, and then how do we work with that obstacle? A lot of times it has to do with mindset that's getting in the way of people taking action. There's often there's that thing that people have been wanting to do, but that inner voice has been telling them not to, has been keeping them afraid of failure. And so I have a lot of different tools that I work with. One of my favorites is the idea of a science experiment. Scientists aren't afraid of getting it wrong because they have to get it wrong on the way to getting it right, right?
Absolutely.
So shifting that perspective so that people start being willing to take risks, to put themselves out there in a new way, and to get it wrong on the way to get it right. There's no win or lose, there's win or learn, right? So anytime it doesn't go the way you wanted, you get to assess the situation so that you can use that information as you try again the next time.
Right, Michelle, right. To understand what is generally the age bracket at which women feel, high achieving women feel stuck, or feeling that, I've got achieved success, but this is not what I wanted. What is that general age group?
It happens for people at different times. I do find a lot of the women that come to me are in their mid-30s to mid-40s. That's a time where they're really reassessing, they're starting to feel their age a little bit, and they have this sense of, is this the rest of my life? And I have responsibility. There's a recognition that they have a responsibility in helping themselves to change it. But it's hard to do by yourself. It's very challenging to know the questions to ask yourself and to be able to, we get into these conversations with ourselves in our head. When you can have the conversation with another person, it's a totally different experience. So I'd say it's really that kind of second act a lot of times where people are like reevaluating and saying, is this really what I want? They may now have kids in a family, or they thought they were going to have kids in a family and they don't. And so it's assessing their lives up to that point and going, I'm just not sure this is exactly how I want it to go for the next 50 years.
Right. What is the mindset of these people who are coming to you, these people who have already achieved? Is it that they want to, women generally don't sometimes, they just want to share their things with others, don't want advice, but since they are coming to you, obviously they are seeking advice. But what is the mindset? And because what you are going to suggest may need a lot of change, their whole life might change.
Yes.
It is not an easy thing, even
correct.
if it is the right thing. What is the mindset? Is it more to share their burden, or is it more open towards actually getting down and making that change? How much percentage would you put that these such people are in that mindset of actually putting those changes back into their life?
When women come to me, they have to be, in order to have success, they have to be ready to start to make changes. It can be small changes. In fact, I am a big proponent of small incremental change leads to big success. We're not going to blow up your entire life right away. And if you do, that's your choice. I don't make choices for my clients. They make the choices themselves. But you do have to be, and people are so terrified of change. But to me, staying stuck in mediocrity or feeling like just meh is far more terrifying than the change that it will take to have a life that feels alive. I mean, that is it. So many people come and they just kind of, there's often a feeling of like this internal meh. I think Adam Grant describes it as languishing, right? There's just this, bleh. And that's a terrible way to,
Right.
sure, it happens for all of us sometimes, but if it's been going on and on and on, that's not a way to live a life. But you do have to have a willingness to try things and to question yourself and your beliefs. We have so many things that we believe are the truth that when you really get down to it, they're assumptions, they're stories we tell ourselves, and they're the things that are getting in the way of us being able to go after the things that we really want to go after, or to live the way we really want to live. And that might look like, I want to quit my job and stay home with my children. That's what brings fulfillment to me. It's not always necessarily, I want to go after this huge thing, that. And that's the other thing for high achieving women is there's a tendency to not allow ourselves to really go after the thing we truly want because we put everybody else's needs and desires before our own.
Right, right, Michelle. In terms of, nowadays, a lot of people just talk about work life balance. You
Mhm.
talk about balance that, this should not be in your list. Don't talk about balance. Help us understand why don't you want
I
them to
don't
have that
believe in
balance in their life?
balance. That's right. I do not believe in balance. Here's why. Particularly for women, I think balance has become another measure of achievement.
Right,
So it's another thing to check off on the to-do list to be able to present as a person in the world who is successful. And it ends up exhausting women trying to do everything. Instead of going after balance, my thought is you go after intentional living. So I think that's really what people are craving, putting their focus on the things that are most important and being able to actually put aside the things that aren't going to be as fulfilling, just aren't going to be at the top of the list right now, because the idea that women can have it all is not, it's a lie. It's not true. And we go after this idea of having everything in balance, and it just exhausts us even more. So instead, looking at the things that are most important, because if everything is important, nothing is important. So when you actually prioritize and get clear about where you really want to put your energy, you get to live a life of full intention rather than balance.
absolutely. One more thing I wanted to understand from you, Michelle, is that uh, a lot of people talk about midlife crisis. How
Mhm.
do you differentiate one thing, whether it's a midlife crisis or is it about happiness and not feeling that success? How do you do that? Is there a difference or is that the same thing?
I love this question, and I've never really thought about it, but I think it's the same thing. I think it's questioning everything. How did I end up where I am? My life is half over, and how did I get here? And often people talk about midlife crisis and there's a tendency to go off and do crazy things. But if you actually just slow down and say, well, why am I asking myself these questions? What's important to me as I move forward in the next half of my life? I think it's really the same idea.
Right, right. People remember about these things about midlife crisis, work life balance, all those things. Why don't they also remember that life begins at 40? We learned about this so long back.
It's so true. It's so true. There's something that happens at 40 where there's a confidence that you gain and less caring about what other people think, right? And that all kind of clicks into place at 40. I think midlife is the best.
Absolutely. And when you start, it's like, joining a new company, you don't have that much of pressure. It's like you start afresh and you are not afraid to fail. When you are not afraid to fail, nothing else matters except that, small, small happiness. That's what success and happiness is all about, I guess.
That's right. That's right. I think so. I do.
Be that as it may, for a lot of people who may not be able to talk to you, who may only listen to this episode, want to evaluate their life, how do they start doing it? Some may feel happy about themselves, some may feel stuck. A lot of people think they can achieve more. That is also a good thing. So how do they evaluate whether their feeling of success or their feeling of being stuck is correct, that they should be taking action? Sometimes you say, why to mend something which is not broken? So how do they know whether they are intact or there is something broken in their lives?
Great question. So there's an exercise that I like to do that I think is a great way for people to start to look at that. And you can write down a list of the different areas of your life: your work, your relation, your friendships, your family, your romantic relationship, your time management, your relationship to yourself and your personal development, your health, right? Your home, like your surroundings. How do you feel? And give them a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being terrible and 10 being I couldn't ask for anything more. How do you feel about that area of your life right now? And then take it the next step. Why did you give it the rating you gave it? Why do you feel that your career is at a 6? And what does it start to, if it were 2 or 3 points higher, if it were an 8 or a 9, what would it look like? And then you get to start to look at, okay, what do I need to do in order to get it those 2 or 3 points higher? And that's, I think, the simplest way to really evaluate where you are and look at what feels like it's really working for you and where might you want to take some action to make some changes.
Wonderful, wonderful. There is much to learn about this as we learn more about life. So for those people who want to learn more about you, more from you, engage with you professionally, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Michelle?
They can either find me on my website, which is michellepollack.com. They can connect with me on Instagram at michellepollack.com, or you can find me at LinkedIn under the same name, Michelle Pollack. Those are the best ways to connect with me.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.